The First Book of Moses, Bereshayath, Chapter 1, First Creation by Elahayam. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elahayam filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayam, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Shishak rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elahayam, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elahayam then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elahayam gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elahayam made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light, Elahayam called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayath, or the Paleo-Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo-Hebrew scriptures.
Last week, viewer response was just about as I expected it to be. The topic was serpent seed, as it is tonight. Now, I had anticipated giving the entire presentation in one fell swoop, kind of a shock and awe operation. You know, the big Betsy of bombs. Send the boys off to war and return them home by Christmas. That sort of ordeal. I wanted to carpet bomb the internet with so many scriptural passages that it would take the propaganda department to, sort it out again. The thing about being live is you never know what could go wrong. I mean, for example, the wind could blow you see these curtains right here? The wind could blow these curtains right in front of my face at any given moment. And you could watch me get strangled by them on live camera. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Last week I was in the hedges, so the internet was spotty. A lightning storm came along and fried, or Starlink, which I used, was cooked. So it got cut a little short. Of course, last night, if you tuned into my Juneteenth episode when I had Jenna on, Starlink was flipping on and off the light switch the entire time. It was pretty annoying, but, we tried to work with it the best we could. So you never really know what's going to happen. Now, getting back to the viewer response, a good number of you showed up merely out of curiosity. I mean, I was expecting that. When the guy in the back alley popped out of a trash can and, he opened up his trench coat and said, "Hey, kid, you want to get woke?" The serpent seed red pill was probably included in the bunch, of all the things you can select. And for whatever reason, you didn't select it. And you never tried it yet. And you wanted to see what a trip was like down Serpent Seed Lane. Another portion of the audience was well versed on Serpent Seed and in total support. You guys were like the paratroopers on D-Day, when I getting dropped into Normandy and you land on the ground, you know what to do. In fact, there's probably very little that I could show you last week or even this week, which you haven't seen or contemplated before. Perhaps tonight I can offer something new and innovative, but if not, that's okay. The repulsive knee-jerk reaction from a noticeable number, I was expecting that as well. I mean, being told that Rosemary's Baby and They Live is a literal documentary and not merely a piece of fiction can be a lot to take in at first glance. There's a few truths that I can recall hearing about and having that reaction. The flat earth wasn't one of them. It actually made more sense to me than anything else in the world. I mean, it brought me a lot of joy. And I remember searching out, curious about the flat earth for probably 15 years, searching for it before I, discovered its truth. So this isn't that. It is, however, really, when you stop to think about the flat earth, not that this is about that tonight, it's kind of the crowning example of ignorance. People are literally conditioned to think that that only an ignorant person and people living in the dark ages would believe that the earth is flat. I did, however, have a knee-jerk reaction upon hearing about the feminine Holy Spirit the first time. And I'm sorry to admit initially to the mere notion that the Torah abides. I had a knee-jerk reaction to that as well. And I'm glad to say that the Torah does abide, and that the Holy Spirit is our mother in heaven, and that we are living under a solid dome. Nothing makes more sense in all the world to me than those three knee-jerk reaction truths. And I could probably come up with a lot of other knee-jerk reactions, but why do that? Because serpent seed isn't one of them. I believe it to be true. It's certainly a knee-jerk reaction that is truth, at least that I believe it is truth. It's simply not the greatest truth. That is to say, the objectors will point out that there is in reality a spiritual seed of Satan and a spiritual seed of Yahweh. That is very much true as well. I fully agree with that. I'm in full agreement, at least the spiritual aspect. There is a spiritual truth to that. And they will disagree and say that there isn't a physical truth. I think there's both. I think there's a physical and a spiritual. And I've stated that repeatedly. At the end of the day, it doesn't ultimately matter if you are the seed of Satan or not. Like, some of you are going to roll your eyes at that and go, wait, what? It actually doesn't matter. I've had many wives. You get the kind of feeling when they're emailing you that they're kind of thinking about a divorce, right? They're trying to build that case up against their husband, make the justification of why he is literally the seed of Satan. You see what I'm saying? And they'll start looking into their husband's genealogy, and they'll be like, no, he's related to this and this king. I'm like, whoop-de-doo, I mean, it's like, so what? Like, so what if he is literally, at this point, if this is true, you could make the case that we're all kind of infiltrated with the seed of the serpent. And I will be showing actual scriptural passages tonight that address this very issue. Now, here's where I may be disappointed in the objectors. Maybe I'm not disappointed. Maybe they should just keep doing this, saying what they're saying, and not go there. I didn't hear a single one of them go after the actual text, because I made a big point of that last week. I mean, I kept saying, look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose any sleep tonight if you don't believe serpent seed is a thing. But I want to make the case, I want to make this clear, that this isn't what Noel is saying. It's what these books are saying. I want to make the case. You can reject it. You can reject the case. But the case is that many ancients, Jewish and Christian, they believed that there was a literal seed of Satan, of the serpent, on the earth. And they were calling the shots. Today we'd call them the blue bloods. I wanted to prove that the serpent seed doctrine wasn't just a read between the lines, see as you will illusion, but an actual belief, again, that the ancients adhered to. And nobody objected to the Aramaic Targum or the writings of Abraham. I spent almost the whole night talking about those. And those, maybe they didn't even sit down to watch the episode, therefore they wouldn't know what I was sourcing, and they were just going, nah, in the comment section, because that happens too. People just go to show up at videos to write their comments without actually doing the research. And those two books are hands down certifiable serpent seed books. They simply, the detractors simply objected to the idea, or the objectors, I should say. And so moving forward, I suppose they will have to continue objecting to the idea, because I'm about to show you even more books where the serpent seed doctrine is upheld and that it rings true as a literal, not just a spiritual seed, but a physical seed. So if you weren't here last week, do go back and watch that video. Better yet, how about spreading my video around to everyone on the internet? I don't know if you ever thought about that before. On Facebook, on X, in every chat room imaginable. on MySpace, if you're still there, in newsletters. I still mourn the loss of my MySpace account. And of course, everyone on your email address book. In fact, spread every video and article that I've ever made while you're at it. Thank you very much. It is appreciated. But don't worry if you haven't. I will go over this really quickly tonight. So let's get right at it. Serpent seed. I will point this out. We're coming up to the end of the month. And the last week of the month is, usually where the miracles occur. You guys like to keep me on my toes. You guys like to get me to go on those long prayer walks, get down on my knees a lot and pray that my family is supported. We are fully supported by viewers like you, by this community. If you guys like what the unexpected cosmology, if you like what I have been putting out, the years and years and years of research that I've been putting out, it's amazing that, like I said last week, I've written articles on serpent seed. I have talked about it endlessly. I have a book on it, and yet I've never made a formal video until last week. So I still have a lot of things to talk about and deal with, and it takes time. You just look at the last year, all the things that I put out. And of course, we're putting out the Paleo Hebrew. We're working with some widows, Pamela and Rebecca. They need your support as well. We all need your support. Guys, let's keep this afloat. Thank you so much for your consideration. Let's start tonight with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, or in some instances, deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. All right. So as I was mentioning in my opening statements, that we went over the Aramaic Targum. Now, the Aramaic Targum, in case you are unaware, is the Aramaic Bible. We have, if you open up your Bible, it's most likely the Old Testament is going to be modern Hebrew, a Targum, an English Targum of the Hebrew, and the New Testament will be Greek, most likely, right? I mean, maybe somebody out there has a Hebrew Bible. They do exist, a translation of it. But this is the Aramaic Old Testament. Of course, we have the Greek Old Testament too. We call that Septuagint. This is the Aramaic Targum, and this is I showed in Genesis that is hands down a serpent seed book. Of course, serpent seed referring to Cain being the literal son of Satan, like literal, the fruits of the union between Satan in the form of a serpent with Eve, of course, being in the form of the serpent, because the serpent most resembles his character. He is, I've made the case that he's a seraphim angel. Some people will disagree with me on that. I believe that he is a dragon, a little dragon serpentine creature. And of course, when Adam, when Cain was delivered, Adam looks at Cain and goes, he doesn't look like anything like me. He looks at Abel and go, okay, he looks like me. And of course, Seth was his as well. And where it really hits in the Aramaic Targum is when we go through the 10 Commandments and we're looking at Exodus chapter 20. And it says, my people of the house. So this is Exodus 20:13 in the Targum. It says, my people of the house of Yasharel be not adulterers. All right. Well, no, we all know that, right? Like, you don't want to be an adulterer, but it says here, he says, through the guilt of adultery, death cometh forth upon the world. So they're right there. So we know that death comes upon the world because of sin, but the actual sin that was committed, the transgression, was adultery. That is referring to Eve, the serpent, and Adam right there. I went over nakedness and how the nakedness refers to, in Genesis, the account that, yes, Adam and Eve were naked when they were together, but only when they were together, privately conjugating, that kind of thing. And they felt no shame in doing that, as any husband and wife would not. But, you have to think about the scenario here. If mankind was, think about this, because people will push this point to no end, that they were literally intended to be naked for an eternity in paradise or wherever, even if they left paradise, went elsewhere walking about, they were intended to be naked. And it's like, okay, all right. So all the guys out there, you married your wife because you're physically attracted to women, and the woman you married embodies the woman that you are attracted to. So you are physically, sexually attracted. You want to procreate, have children with this woman. And okay, and then it's like time to get with your friends, and another husband and wife, and they come over naked. You're all naked together. And apparently you're not supposed to have any attraction at this point to other women. Like you look at other women, nothing at all, no attraction. Of course, you have children, and the children are, I guess, naked. I mean, this is getting pretty disgusting pretty quickly. And they get married, and so the in-law, the stepchildren come over. That you have a son, and he gets a wife, and now she's naked. And it's like they're saying you're naked. It gets like, okay, no, that whole situation, that worldview, it doesn't work in no way, shape, or form. You cannot make that work. I made the case that they actually wore clothing. It was like this purple light. They were clothed with the Ruach HaKodesh. And they derobed themselves. They actually, it wasn't that the robe was stripped from them. They actually derobed themselves to commit the act. Let's see. What else did we look at last week? This is going to be a great night, huh? I'm getting everything confused. I skipped right over the various children of Adam and Eve. That wasn't important. We talked about Noah and the fact that he married at least 2 wives. And one of them was the sister of Tubal Cain. Her name was Naamah. And it makes total sense when you look at, why did Moses have these 2 lineages in Genesis? Why did he have the sons of Seth and the sons of Cain? It makes no sense if the sons of Cain were, my wife came in the door and she was saying that I'm going off camera a lot like this because I'm animated up here, and it's this really little sliver that I'm in front of here, my camera. So I'm not trying to like slip any gang signs or street creds your way. So anyways, yeah, he marries 2 women, and Tubal Cain is explicitly mentioned in Genesis. And I showed you in the writings of Abraham that she was a child of Cain, and that through Naamah he had Ham, and then through Shem and Japheth he had his through another wife. And of course, it is through Tubal Cain that the Freemasons find their genetic, not just spiritual, really, but their genetic heritage. There's a lot of stuff here. And then we went into the sin of Adam and Eve repeated with Noah. Not that Noah committed the sin, but he's trying to plant paradise again. He's actually taking the actual fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the grapes. There's a lot of rabbinical commentary on that. And he's trying to reinstitute paradise on the earth again, Adam and Eve all over again. And then Ham, the son of Cain, who is, carried through the flood, goes in, does what he does with Noah's wife, has a child. So now Noah has a child and a grandchild simultaneously through his wife. He can never touch his wife or be with her again. It's a pretty messed up situation. And of course, Canaan is cursed as a result of that. And Ham is a really bad dude, which we're not going to cover too much tonight. So I think that catches up to speed. That was like an hour and a half of material right there. Serpent Seed continued. And I want to ask a question tonight. Why is American royalty related to the Magna Carta signers? I'll be showing you some of my genealogical work, my research on this. And but I'm going to be kind of turning the question a little bit, because I'm also going to be asking the question, did anybody of the Serpent Seed lineage, the physical lineage, survive the millennial kingdom? Meaning, did they enter the millennial kingdom on one end and out the other, or were they wiped out at the beginning? And then you have to ask the question, well, if that's the case, then who are the blue bloods? All right. So hold that thought, because starting out tonight, we're going to be looking at the sin of Ham continued with Reuben and Bilhah. Now, I had established the fact that that your father's nakedness, which is how the phrase is employed in Genesis, is a direct reference to your father's wife, because in many instances, your father's wife might not be your mother, right? And of course, if you were going to go challenge your father's authority, what would you do? You would take his women. Absalom did the same thing with David, right? The first thing he did is he went and took his concubines. When David came back, he never took his concubines again. They were just, that was it. He could never take them again because his son had them. That was a abominable act, and it was how he challenged his authority. He exposed his father's nakedness. This is what it says in Genesis 35. And it came to pass when Yashruel dwelt in that land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Yashruel heard it. Now the sons of Yaakov were 12. That whole, kind of a quick passage right there, right? Not a lot going on there. There is a lot going on, but not a lot that's described. When you get into Jubilees, it expands on the scene a little bit more. So let's read about it. And Reuben saw Bilhah, Rachel's maid, the concubine of his father, bathing in water in a secret place, and he loved her. And he hid himself at night, and he entered the house of Bilhah at night. And he found her sleeping alone on a bed in her house, and he lay with her. And she awoke and saw, and behold, Reuben was lying with her in the bed. And she uncovered the border of her covering and seized him and cried out and discovered that it was Reuben. And she was ashamed because of him and released her hand from him, and he fled. And she lamented because of this thing exceedingly and did not tell it to anyone. And when Yaakov returned and sought her, she said unto him, I am not clean for thee, for I have been defiled as regards thee. For Reuben has defiled me and has lain with me in the night, and I was asleep and did not discover until he uncovered my skirt and slept with me. And Yaakov was exceedingly wroth with Reuben because he had lain with Bilhah, because he had uncovered his father's skirt. Now, this is kind of interesting because in Jubilees, they don't, at least this translation, it doesn't say uncovered his father's nakedness. But it's kind of the same concept, right? Because his father's skirt, saying that anything that belonged to Bilhah was his father's, right? So it would be the same that implied with her nakedness. That is, obviously his nakedness too. I have to be honest, to be frank, now that I have a daughter, a lot of you out there have daughters. Some of you don't have daughters. When you have a daughter, I'm a middle-aged man. I went my whole life without a daughter. Of course, I married my high school sweetheart back in the last century, if you can imagine that far back, if you have memories of that, pre 9/11. But I went my whole life without a daughter. And then when I had a daughter, that revolutionized my entire world. It changed everything for me. I mean, everything changed. And like, I totally see that now. Like, she too is my nakedness. Like if something happened to my daughter, that's my nakedness that is exposed and violated. That rings so true to me. And Yaakov did not approach her again because Reuben had defiled her. And this is what it sucks, but this is what happens time again biblically. This is why, like, today in the sex revolution or the love revolution, whatever you want to call it, like, even though, like, the R word rape, it's bad. It's not even treated as bad as it was back then in the barbaric days, apparently, when women didn't have rights. Like, it was bad back then, and it should be today. Like, people should be given the death sentence for this kind of thing. Like, this is a serious thing. Yeah, that's not what this discussion's on tonight. And as for any man who uncovers his father's skirt, his deed is wicked exceedingly, for he is abominable before Yahweh. For this reason, it is written and ordained on the heavenly tablets that a man should not lie with his father's wife and should not uncover his father's skirt, for this is unclean. So they're telling you here, even though they translate father's skirt instead of father's nakedness, it's the same command. It's on the tablet, the Torah that came down, same command. They shall surely die together, the man who lies with his father's wife and the woman also, for they have wrought uncleanness on the earth. And there shall be nothing unclean before our Elohim or Elohim in the nation which he has chosen for himself as a possession. And again, it is written a second time, cursed be he who lieth with the wife of his father, for he hath uncovered his father's shame. And all the holy ones of Yahweh said, so be it, so be it. And there it is right there, the shame, right? Adam and Eve were not ashamed until they felt ashamed. They were uncovered. Jubilees 33, 2-12. This is what it says in 2 Samuel 16. And I had given this example already tonight. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house. This is after he had fled Absalom, and put them in ward and fed them and went not in unto them. So they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood. 2 Samuel 16. Sad. I'm going to just skip over Isaiah here. Oh, here's another one from the Testament of Reuben. Let's read his Reuben's account of this. And now, my children, love the truth, and it will preserve you. Hear ye the words of Reuben your father. Pay no heed to the face of a woman, nor associate with another man's wife, nor meddle with affairs of womankind. For had I not seen Bilhah bathing in a covered place, I had not fallen into this great iniquity. Now, the way he writes that there, it's almost like, looks like he's blame shifting on, it's Bilhah's fault. Like, had I not seen her naked, but just keep in mind, I don't think that's what he's doing, but keep in mind, she was bathing in a secret place. It wasn't like she was out in the open. So, he was the peeping Tom in this situation. He was putting himself into a situation, maybe out of curiosity. It was still, perversive, since it is his father's concubine. It was not his place to go see her. And obviously then, he thought he could control his desires, and he got pushed over the edge, right? You never know how far you can go in your control before you are enticed to not only sin, but go to an abominable route, which is why you need to guard the commands. For my mind, taking in the thought of the woman's nakedness, suffered me not to sleep until I had wrought the abominable thing. For while Yaakov, her father, had gone to Yitzchak, his father, when we were in Eder, near to Ephrath and Bethlehem, Bilhah became drunk and was asleep uncovered in her chamber. Same thing happened with Noah, right? Having therefore gone in and beheld nakedness, I wrought the impiety without her, perceiving it. And leaving her sleeping, I departed. And forthwith an angel of Elohim revealed to my father concerning my impiety, and he came and mourned over her and touched her no more. So in both of these accounts, in Jubilees and Testament of Reuben, we see that it was not her desire, not her will. She did not go along with it. She was so, on her butt drunk as a skunk, in a situation that, it was almost like, I guess, almost like a date rape type situation. Like, she didn't even know until it was over, and she was like, wait a second. Why are you in bed with me? This is gross, disgusting. And she screams, get out of here. But it's too late. All right. So now that we've established that, and I'm going to be talking more about Cain tonight. I hope I have those notes in here. And how he actually survived the flood, believe it or not. Yes, he did die. We know that his death is accounted for in Jubilees and Jasher, but actually it makes a lot of sense that he survived the flood because he was like a first generation, what we would call a Nephilim, really. He was a first generation seed of an angelic being, just like the Watchers, and therefore they became demons. They became disembodied spirits. The same thing happened with Cain. And this is where, people ask me all the time, like, Noel, how do you determine if something is true? Because there's a lot of different pieces out there. And the thing is about in the true of the world or the non-true of the world, if you're just in the world, you can be an evolutionist or a young earth creationist, you communist or capitalist, pick whatever you want, theocracy, all these different pieces out there, and kind of conform it to custom fit it to your world. That's the way it works. And then you can make your argument seem like it makes more sense than anything else in the world. And that's kind of the way it goes. So for me, it's when you're trying to take all these different pieces, you're trying to figure out, like, is my vision getting more darkened and narrow, and more things getting closed off to me? That's happened many times where I've had to kind of back up from the situation and then kind of see the light appear in my peripheral vision again. In this context, understanding that Cain lived on, at least in the sense that he died. He is an evil spirit that's wandering the earth. He actually taught Nimrod afterwards. He was the culprit, probably Ham as well. And it makes sense when you talk to people in Freemasonry who've come out of it. I brought some onto Tuck, And they'll be like, yeah, that's what they do. They worship the spirit of Cain. So it's like, how do you have the spirit of Cain? How are you worshiping that? Is that just like a syrupy Hallmark metaphor, the spirit of Cain? Or is it really the spirit of Cain? Right? So anyways, we go on to Ham. Canaan, he has his descendants. And so early on with my serpent seed research, I started kind of getting really interested in the genealogy in the Bible. I mean, like, okay, if this theory is true, then we need to see what's going on. There's, at the end of the day, there's so many generations that kind of passes down that I think you kind of, it's okay after a while. But there's these initial generations. So this is what I call Nimrod's children. And Hagar was one of them, the handmaid of Sarah, princess of Egypt. This is where it gets really trippy because, well, let's just see what it says here in the writings of Abraham. And Elohim, or Allahayam, hearkened into my prayer and withheld his spirit from the Egyptians, that none of them were able to come at their wives that night. Now, this is the account of Abraham and Sarah down in Egypt. And what he just described here is erectile dysfunction. There is all of Egypt, all of the Egyptians were given that night. Now, there could be, which really probably plays in with the gods of Egypt. It makes a lot of sense with the mysteries of Isis and Osiris. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Those big old phalluses that you see everywhere. He was striking at that. In the morning, consternation throughout the land of Egypt, for no man had been able to lie with his wife all that. And another thing I'm thinking about is, he could have made all the women unclean, the time of their month, but that's not really how it reads. It reads like the men really, really wanted to, desperately, they were looking forward to it all day. And they, I can't wait till I get off of work and I put the kids to bed and I'm going to get my wife alone. And then they did. And they were not able to, no matter how much they tried. That seems to be what's going on here. And Pharaoh also was greatly perplexed, for although his lust towards Sarai had grown throughout the night, he had been unable to satisfy that lust because of the curse of Allahayam, which rested upon him. Therefore, he summoned all the wise men, the physicians of his household, but none could heal him, and all had suffered the same affliction. That comes from the writings of Abraham 69. So let's skip ahead now to chapter 105, 106. And it says, and Pharaoh made all matters right with Sarai, and he blessed her with the outpouring of his spirit, and she was blessed in his presence. So this is a big kind of narrative jump here. Pharaoh actually, basically, he enters the Melchizedek priesthood. All right. Now, Pharaoh is, well, let's just read what it says right here. And he gave unto her Sarah Hagar, his own daughter, also to be her companion, and to Hagar he gave many gifts. And then we read in 106, now when Sarah saw that she bare neither son nor daughter, it grieved her heart. And she said unto me, take therefore Hagar, daughter of Pharaoh, to be thy wife, for she is a woman now. Now, obviously, she was given Hagar as a little girl before she became a woman. She's a woman now. But I want you to really think about what is happening here. Okay, the context is in our tunnel vision, our peripheral vision, and our 360 is serpent seed. That there's an actual line of Hasatan that has infiltrated the earth, and Yahuwah is trying to create his own people through Abraham. Sarah is unable to have children. So Abraham's like, I don't know how I'm going to resolve this situation, because I'm supposed to have descendants as numerous as the stars, as the sands on the seashore. And I got a wife. She's not able to have children. And so she's giving me now Hagar. And I've gone over the situation with, I showed you last week in Genesis where she said that the child born through Hagar would be like her child, right? She's going to adopt this child. It didn't turn out that way, but, and she would be like in the genealogy, he would be, assuming that she accepted him as a son, he would be accredited as her child. And I've shown in the past weeks how we have many genealogies in the Bible where people can get confused They sometimes can look like contradictions, but we have to understand that it's not always biological son to son to son. They are adopted. And then this is what we see here. This is Genesis 16 in the Targum. It says, but Sarah, the wife of Abram, had not born to him, but he had a handmaid, an Egyptian, and her name was Hagar, a daughter of Pharaoh. So this is awesome because right here in the Aramaic Targum and the writings of Abraham, we see two different traditions that connect. They both agree that Hagar was a daughter of Pharaoh. Now, why is this so important? Why am I making a big deal about this? Well, let's read what the Aramaic Targum also says in Genesis 16. It says that, and Sarah said to Abram, all my affliction is from thee. Being secure that thou wouldst do me justice, I left the land and house of my father and came up with thee to a foreign land. And for as much as I was not able to become a mother, I set free my handmaid and gave her to lie in thy bosom. And she seeth that she had conceived, and mine honor is despised before her. So obviously it didn't go as planned. But now is my affliction manifest before Yahuwah, who will spread peace between me and thee, and the land shall be replenished from us, nor shall we need the help of the progeny of Hagar, the daughter of Pharaoh Bar Nimrod, who threw thee into the furnace of fire. So right there, it's saying that Hagar is the granddaughter of Nimrod, the very individual who threw Abraham into the furnace of fire, which actually the writings of Abraham does talk about, and Jasher as well. Some great comparisons there. Yeah, so let's think about that. Think about that for a second. So we were almost in a situation where Ishmael was the heir of Abraham, the heir of the covenant, that it would have been the children of Ishmael, the son of Nimrod. We were that close. This is how narrowly close we came in the biblical storyline. Now, I'd probably put this out of order here, but I will address this since we're here. Gospel of John. This is the Hebrew Gospel of John, Yochanan, chapter 8 right here. And this is the opposition that most people are going to have with the serpent seed issue. And I started out talking about this tonight. They say it's merely spiritual. Now, I don't agree with the merely, but I do agree that there is a spiritual seed. All right. And when people, I think that there's some kind of misdirection here, and maybe it's not the best information. Maybe it's misinformation. When the serpent seed crowd uses John chapter 8 to prove their point, it's not the best argument. In a lot of people's minds who are canon only, they're going to look at that and go, yeah, you've just disproved the whole serpent seed idea right there. If you're reading that into that, because we know that I don't have time tonight to go over the sons of Esau that came and infiltrated Israel after the Maccabean revolt, and Herod, he was Esau, the Edomites, all that kind of stuff. But these were not the Jewish people, right? So he could be talking about that here. But here's what Messiah says. He says, I know that you are the sons of Abraham. So notice the Messiah doesn't say that they're Jews. He doesn't say that they come through Yehuda, who is a son of Yaakov, a son of Yitzchak. He agrees that they're sons of Abraham. They could be sons of Esau. They could be sons of Ishmael. They are all sons of Abraham. Not the same people, though. But you want to put me to death because my word is not within you. I speak that which I saw from the Father, but you do not. You do that which you saw with your father. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. So Yeshua said to them, if you are the sons of Abraham, do the works of Abraham. But you want to kill me, a man who speaks truth to you, that which I heard from El. Did Abraham do this? You do the works of your father. And they said to him, we were not born out of fornication. Isn't that interesting? They take it straight to sex. The guys, they just did that. Like, are they projecting? Do they know what he was saying here? So there is a physicality to this. You can't deny that. We have one El and one father. So Yeshua said to them, if El were your father, you would have loved him, for I came from El, and I went out from El, and I did not come from myself, but he sent me. If you guys remember the one I gave a few months ago on Satan falling from heaven, the lightning that fell from heaven. I went through as many texts as I could on his initial rebellion that described it. I read from this passage. I said, imagine on it would have been the first day of creation, and the angels are created in darkness, and they Satan was the one we know as Lucifer. Just go with me on this, right? Azazel. Okay, he was the first created, and he knows it, and he's sitting there thinking, did he make himself? He's not really sure, and because he hasn't met the Creator yet. He has no knowledge of a great Creator. He thinks, therefore he is, right? And he starts looking around. He knows all these other angels popping up. They're wondering the same thing. And then all of a sudden, Yahshua steps out through the light. He appears and manifests before them. And they're like, and he's like, I speak on behalf of the Father. I have seen the Father. Everything I do, I learn from him. And Satan, Azazel's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, okay, well then just imagine him giving these words to him at that time. Something similar to it. Why do you not recognize my word? It is because you are not able to obey him. You are the sons of Hasatan, your father. Therefore, you take pleasure in doing the will of your father. He was a murderer at the beginning and did not abide in truth, for there is no truth with him. For everything which he speaks is a lie. He speaks that which is nigh to him. For he is its father, the father of night, and he is a liar. But if I speak truth to you, you do not believe me. Who of you traps me in sin? If I speak truth to you, why do you not believe me? Whosoever is from El obeys the word of El, and this is why you do not obey it, because you are not from El. Ouch, guys. So, I mean, in Messiah's words, if we are, if Yahuwah, or you say Allah Hayam, our Father in heaven, if he is our Father, then we obey his words. That's simple, guys. That's simple. Like, closed case, end of scenario. It's not just some, go team Jesus football team. Have you heard, Jesus made the Super Bowl this year and the World Series, and he's also starring in the Olympics this year. So we're just going to cheer him on. Like, no. That's not what that's not the doctrinal statement here. You just have to believe that he's going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's like, no, you got to obey. That's it. And if you do not obey, then he's not your father. You are the son of Satan, not the physical seed, but the spiritual seed. So on this point, I fully agree with the other camp. So anyways, getting back to writings of Abraham, this passage here is on Pharaoh being baptized. He enters the order of Melchizedek. We don't need to go there. But he does say this here, behold, the day cometh. This is, I think, Pharaoh speaking here in Egypt. He says, the day cometh when the seed of Ham shall again rule in this land. And at that day thy seed shall be in bondage to them. But I will raise up a prince from among the Egyptians. Okay, so I'm sorry. This is Yahuwah speaking here, not Pharaoh, who shall lead them out of bondage, and they shall inherit the land of Canaan, even that land which I have promised unto thee and to thy seed after thee for an everlasting inheritance. All right. So we know that Hagar is a daughter of Pharaoh, who is a son of Nimrod, and of course the inheritance was not passed down to her. But then we have Eliezer. He's an interesting fellow. He too almost became an heir of Abraham. Genesis 14:14 says, and when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. The same passage says this in the Aramaic Targum. And when Abraham heard that his brother was made captive, he armed his young men who were trained for war, grown up in his house, but they willed not to go with him. Well, that was kind of a turn, an unexpected one. So Abraham's like, okay, so all my servants don't want to go to fight. So then it says, and he chose from them Eliezer, the son of Nimrod, who was equal in strength to all the 318, and he pursued unto Dan. So right here, according to this passage, Eliezer, the famed Eliezer, the servants of Abraham, is the son of Nimrod. So this is incredible. So what we see, and this is during the the Genesis 13-14 war. So what's happening here is that Nimrod is, we know in the travels of Noah into Europe that Ham was going around and flipping thrones, taking the sons of Japheth and Shem out of the thrones and planting his own children, their bums on the seat. Nimrod was one of his descendants, his children, but Nimrod and Ham apparently did not get along, so they had some competition. But then you have Og out in the wild, wild west in Canaan, and Nimrod he's planting his children on thrones out there. He's got one in Pharaoh in Egypt. He's got Eliezer in Damascus, you see. But there's allies being forged here. And Eliezer decides not to carry on the spiritual seed of his father, and Pharaoh the same. The problem is they still have the physical seed. So this is what it says here, going back to the writings of Abraham. With this blessing resting upon me, I gathered together my family, for I had taken 7 wives in the city of Shalom, who had borne me 50 daughters. That's a lot of daughters. Wow. I mean, I love my daughter to death. I would love another daughter, but 50 daughters is a lot. For anyone who's had a daughter, that's a lot of daughters. And although I had no sons of my own flesh, yet I had adopted 12 sons of those who were faithful in the order of the ancients. That'd be the Melchizedek. And foremost among these were Eliezer of Damascus, who had come to the city of Shalom. So he adopts him as a son. How exciting. Him I appointed as steward over all I possessed for this journey, for he stood as mine heir, for I loved him as my son and brother. And I said unto him, behold, this great city is steeped in wickedness and sin, for the secret combinations which was from the beginning doth hold her sway. Wherefore ye shall remain here under the direction of Eliezer, while I go alone into the city, unto my father's house. This is the city of lights. He's going back to Nimrod's city. For Yahuwah Elohim of Shem and of Noah hath promised me that they will protect me against the anger of the king, such that I shall be able to accomplish my mission. He's going to confront Eliezer's father and telling Eliezer to stay back. And then again, we see this in the writings of Abraham. When Noah had departed from me, I rose up and was circumcised by Eliezer. People always, wonder, did Abraham circumcise himself? According to this, Eliezer had that honor to do it. In Genesis 22:3, it says, and Abraham rose up in the morning and saddled his ass. This is the Aramaic Targum, by the way, and took 2 young men with him, Eliezer and Ishmael, and Yitzchak his son. And they cut the small wood and the figs and the palm, which are provided for the whole burnt offering. This is the context here, is that Yitzchak is going to be sacrificed. Ishmael comes along. We know this in Jasher. That's documented in there as well. But Eliezer is going along with them. Now, this is where Abraham, in the writings of Abraham 27, learns that Eliezer is not going to be his heir. It said, but Father Shem said unto me, Eliezer is a good and righteous man, and he shall be greatly blessed in time and in eternity. But he shall not be thine heir. Who shall be thine heir? Who shall take in the house of thy father? For she is ordained to be the queen of queens and the mother of thine heir. Of course, this is Sarah, speaking of her. So I went up out of Egypt, jumping ahead to chapter 79 of the writings of Abraham. So I went up out of Egypt, and Lot accompanied me, who had taken 3 wives while in Egypt, namely Jennifer, daughter of Eliezer of Damascus, Deborah, daughter of Cumin, who had come out of the city of Ur, and Astorah, daughter of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now, we don't know who Deborah is. Daughter of Cumin, I guess. I didn't put the legwork into that. But Jennifer and Astorah, they are... Esther is the daughter of Pharaoh, meaning just like Hagar, so Nimrod would be her grandfather. And Jennifer is the daughter of Eliezer, meaning that Nimrod would have been her grandfather. So Lot marries 2 wives, coming down from Nimrod, coming down, they're Hamites. Here's another one from the writings of Abraham. So the city of Sodom is being overthrown. And Lot thought to dwell in Zoar, wherefore he hastened there. But his wife Addo turned back unto the city of Sodom. Addo was the daughter of Eli, the son of Eliezer. So this is still the writings of Abraham. So this is another wife. This is not Jennifer. This is not Esther. This is not Deborah. This is another wife, Addo. This is the same book, writings of Abraham, and this is the granddaughter of Eliezer. So Eliezer, he had a lot of family members, a lot of children that were destroyed in Sodom and Gomorrah. She's the one that turns back and is turned into a pillar of salt. Nimrod's great granddaughter. Of course, I think she was probably a 9 or 12 footer. I can't remember now. That pillar out there is pretty big, and I have found that pillar on medieval maps. She was a big woman, pretty tall. This is what it says in the Targum again in Genesis 24. And then I'm going to make a point here to all of this. I'm going to sum this up before moving on. And Abraham said to Eliezer, his servant, the senior of his house, who had ruled over all his property, put now thy hand upon the section of my circumcision. Of course, remember, Eliezer circumcised him, and swear to me in the name of the word of Yahweh Elohim, whose habitation is in heaven on high, and Elohim, whose dominion is over the earth, that thou wilt not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but that thou wilt go to the land and the house of my kindred and take a wife for my son, Yitzchak. Of course, you guys know the story. He goes back and finds Rebecca or Rivka. And it's a really touching story. It became more of a touching story for me when I realized that he was in line. I mean, Eliezer thought like he was going to get the inheritance. He was going to be the next in line, the father of the promise, the son of the father of the promise, of the sands, the sand on the shore, the stars in heaven, the incountable number, or numbered as many as the stars. He was going to be it. And he actually gave up his life, his riches under Nimrod, his father, to throw away all his wealth. I mean, this guy was like the king of Damascus. He gave it all up to be a servant of Abraham. And this guy isn't talked about enough. I mean, this is truly one of the greatest servants in the Bible. And then he had to go. It had to be on his mind the whole time, the whole journey, and there and back again, as he's going to get a young girl, a woman, for Yitzchak, knowing that she was going to be, they were going to be the inheritance and not him. Amazing man. Which then brings us into this next point. And the thing with Eliezer, now Hagar, we don't really know her story, how it ended up for her. But with Eliezer, let's just say he was the seed of Cain. All right. He's a seed of Satan. But I'm going to show you here that this is where the spiritual seed comes in. And truly, he was the seed of Yahweh. It doesn't matter if you're the seed of Cain or the seed of Seth. At the end of the day, all that matters is whether you're the spiritual seed of Yahweh. Here's what it says in Apocalypse of Abraham. After another drink of coffee. And I said, O eternal mighty one, what is this vision and picture of the creatures? And I've pointed this out many times before. This is like the oldest science fiction element that I can find in literature. People say that Dante was the first science fiction. This predates it by thousands of years. And Abraham is actually looking at a movie projector. He's looking at it in a movie screen. It's like framed. It's called like a picture, but he's seeing all these different players move around, and it's being recorded for him. And he said to me, this is my will for those who exist in the divine world council. For thus it seemed well pleasing in my sight. And so afterwards I gave commandment to them through my word. And so it came to pass that whatever I had determined to be was already planned beforehand in the picture vision before you in the movie. And it has stood before me before it was created, as you have seen. Isn't that crazy to think about? Like guys, everything we have comes down from heaven. They are the mysteries of heaven. Movies and music and, computers, everything. It's amazing to think about. And I said, O Lord, mighty and eternal, who are the people in this picture on this side and that? So if you can envision this, right? There's one picture, people standing on the left, stage left, on stage right. And he said to me, those who are on the left side, a stage left, are all those born before your day and afterwards, some destined for judgment and restoration, and others for vengeance and cutting off at the end of the age. But those on the right side of the picture, stage right, they are the people who have been set apart for me, and whom I have ordained to be born of your line and called my people, even some of those who derive from Azazel. So let's look at let's kind of go over what just happened here. He says that the people on stage left, they come from the line of Azazel. And he says that there were people in that crowd before Abraham, but also some that have not been born yet, meaning that in Abraham's day, the line of Azazel was still continuing. And then there were people on the right side, and those people are serving Yahuwah. But interestingly enough, he says that there are some people on the right who are serving Yahuwah, who are bound for salvation, who derive from Azazel, from the house of Azazel. Now, if you were just this is talking physical here, because if you were talking spiritually, it would be like, no, everybody on the right side were the seed of Azazel until they were the seed of Yahuwah. But that's not what he says. He says that no, there are some people on this line that are of Adam's seed, through Yahuwah, but we're including some of Azazel's children in this as well. We're going to redeem some of them. Now look again in the picture and see who it is who seduced Eve, and what is the fruit of the tree, and you will know what is to be and how it shall be with your seed among the people at the end of the days of the age. And all that you cannot understand, I will make known to you, for you are well-pleasing in my sight. And I will tell you of those things which are kept in my heart. And I looked into the picture, and my eyes ran to the side of the Garden of Eden, and I saw there a man of imposing height and mighty in stature, incomparable in aspect. And he was embracing a woman who likewise approximated to the aspect of his size and stature. And they were standing under a tree of the Garden of Eden. And the fruit of this tree was like a bunch of grapes of the vine. There's another reference to that right there. And standing behind the tree was one who had the aspect of a serpent, having hands and feet like those of a man, and wings on its shoulders, 6 pairs of wings, so that there were 6 wings on the right and 6 on the left. And as I continued looking, I saw the man and the woman eating the fruit from the tree. And I said, who are these who are embracing, and who is the one between them, and who is behind the tree, and what is the fruit that they are eating? And he replied, this is the counsel of the world. This one is Adam, and this one who is their desire upon the earth is Eve. But he who is between them represents ungodliness and their beginnings on the way to perdition, even Azazel, the apocalypse of Abraham. So, yeah. Just remember that right there, because people who get into the serpent seed doctrine, they can get really paranoid really quickly. And I've seen it. I mean, it's sad. This is one of those things you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I'm not just trying to come at the women here, but I've seen many women online, and some have written to me personally, who they are bitter at their husbands, and they know I'm a serpent seed researcher, and they want me to justify why they should leave their husband, because apparently they have discovered that he is the literal seed of Satan. Somehow they checked his genealogy or something like that. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter, nor do you know. There's no way you can possibly know whether you are or are not. And all that matters is, do we serve Yahuwah at the end of the day? Because he's going to save both houses. So let's jump ahead to the second Adam and second Eve scenario. And I'm going to be showing you some texts, some Christian texts, which support the idea of Mary, the mother of Yahshua, being a second Eve prototype. And of course, Adam or Yahshua, as you know, is a second Adam prototype, but in the serpent seed context. Now, this comes from Paul. 1 Corinthians 15 is a popular passage. I also have down here Romans chapter 5, but let's read 1 Corinthians 15 first. And he says, It is sown as a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body, and here is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first Adam was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. So we pull a lot of, theology from that right there. Howbeit that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterwards that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earthy. The second man is Yahweh from heaven. Isn't that amazing? It says right there that, according to this translation I have, that Yahshua is Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament. Yahweh is not the Father, right? Yahweh is the Son. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy, and as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. This is a great way of just describing the spiritual seed of Satan versus the seed of Yahuwah, who is your father, right? You're gonna at the end of the day, we can't help it. Either we're gonna bear Satan's image or Yahuwah's image. The Azazel goat or the Yahuwah goat. One of the two. We have no choice. We're gonna go in either direction. And then he says this in Romans chapter 5. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men because all sinned. For until the Torah, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no Torah. Is that interesting? And it's true. I mean, it's like, if you do it with the Torah, then you can't have sin, right? Because sin is the Torah, a transgression of the Torah. You cannot have sin apart from the Torah at all. Even Paul agrees with that. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moshe, even over those who had not sinned according to the likeness of the transgression of Adam. That's kind of interesting. Who is a type of him who was to come. Now, in rabbinical culture, in letters to that time, and the Aramaic Targum, they had already been making the case, guys. They had already been making the case that the likeness of the transgression was adultery. He doesn't outright say adultery, but he does agree that there are people who do commit Adam's sin and those who do not. So if you've never committed adultery, then you haven't committed the sin of Adam and Eve, but a lot of people have. But the free gift is not like the offense, for if by the one man's offense many died, much more the grace of Allah Hayam and the gift by the grace of the one man, Yahushua HaMashiach, or Yahshua Messiah, abounded to many. Romans 5. This is what it says in Acts 16. And I think this is important, just general good advice to give to you guys. And the jailer brought them out and said, Sirs, what must I do to be saved? And they said, believe on the Adonai, Yahshua Messiah, and you shall be saved, and your house. So here's the thing. It was imperative for Satan he wanted Adam to fall. And he knew that the best way to do that was, actually, let me just read this right here. Hildegard. Okay. This is what Hildegard says right here. Eve was invaded by the devil through the seduction of the serpent for her own downfall. Why was this? Because Satan knew that the susceptibility of the woman would be more easily conquered than the strength of the man. And he saw that Adam burned so vehemently in his holy love for Eve that if he, the devil, conquered Eve, Adam would do whatever she said to him. By first misleading Eve so that she might flatter and caress Adam and thus win his assent, since she more than any other creature could lead Adam to disobedience, having been made from his rib. Thus, woman very quickly overthrows man if he does not hate her and easily accept her words. Now, he's using the word that she's using the hate here in the same language use as Yahshua says about, hating your father and mother. So here's the thing. Satan knew that it was never about Eve. It was always about Adam. And he knew that his best chance of success was getting Adam through her. Had Adam chosen not to sin, to transgress, and not take part in the menage a trois or eat the fruit or whatever you want to, throw out there, I believe he could have saved her. I believe he could have redeemed her. And it's unfortunate that he did partake in it, and they were both fallen from grace. But this is something for all of you out there, husbands and wives. This is one of the reasons Paul says to stay married. A lot of individuals, they'll be in Christianity their whole life. Maybe they weren't really believers all that much, just your run of the mill sports addict Americans, 4th of July barbecue, hot dogs, that kind of stuff. Just, your basic Christmas, Easter Americans. They come to the truth. They come to the Torah. They're pursuing one of them. They're pursuing Yahweh's instructions in righteous living. And I've said this to many men, that I believe that if their wife is a non-believer, that they can actually bring them into eternity. They can actually save their household, as it says here in Acts. By their action, the household can be saved. And I actually believe this perhaps for the wives as well, that that the wife can go into eternity, and the husband can make a choice, be like, hey, I want to come in with you, maybe, and be like, okay. It seems to be the case. It seems to be a biblical case for that you can redeem your spouse. And there's something out of our love for them that we want to continue being loyal to them and being loyal to Yahweh. But we are loyal to, you guys know this, we honor our father and mother, and we honor our spouse by loving Yah and putting him first. And that's how we honor them. It says this in 1 Corinthians. But to the rest I speak, I, not Yahweh. If any brother has a woman that believes not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let him not put her away. And the woman which has a man that believes not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving man is sanctified by the woman, and the unbelieving woman is sanctified by the man. Else were your children unclean, but now they are holy. But if the unbelieving departs, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not in bondage in such cases, but Elohim has called us to peace. So, basically, like, you can save your household, but there has to be this understanding that they're going to obey the rules, right? Like, as father, as the head of my household, I can save my family by honoring Yah, but my family has to be like, you know what? We have to obey your rules. We have to understand that as long as we're living with you, we're not going to do X, Y, Z, fill in the blank. And if we can't agree to that, then we will leave peaceably. We will separate ways. 2 Corinthians says this, for I am jealous over you with a righteous jealousy, for I have espoused you to one man, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Mashiach. Now, this is kind of interesting because look at this in the context of the virgin here, sexuality, being betrothed to one man. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve, Chatwaha, through her subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Mashiach. This took me a long time to see this. I've already shown you the other passage with Paul. The guy was a rabbinical literate, and he's probably familiar with the Targums by this point. I think Paul believed in the serpent seed doctrine, and I think he actually spells it out right there, very subtly, to the point that if you don't know what it is, you're going to read right over it, not even look twice at it. That's the serpent seed doctrine right there. I mean, he is including the deception of Eve and the serpent in with the idea of being a chaste virgin for Mashiach. Here's what it says in 4th Maccabees. The mother of the 7 sons also shared these moral principles with her children. She's going to be killed here, and she is refusing to do unholy acts. She is, she won't eat a piece of bacon, right? Like, they're holding out a piece of bacon and going, you better eat this or we're going to kill you. And she's like, okay, then kill me, right? So this is what she says to her 7 sons. I was a virgin who was sexually pure. Interesting thing to say to your sons. I didn't go outside of my father's house, but I carefully took care of the body that was formed from a rib. So she's comparing herself to Eve right here. No man who takes advantage of women ever tempted me to have sex in an isolated field. The destructive lying snake didn't ruin my innocence either. So there was this belief going around at that time during the Maccabean revolt that the serpent, Satan, still had the ability to go around and seduce women and sleep with them. We see the same thing happening we could say that's the Jewish tradition right here, but this is the game changer right here, because this is a early Christian text, Infancy Bezora of Matthew, who was at Origen, who specifically said that he believed that the infancy gospel of Matthew was written by the same individual who wrote the gospel of Matthew. And that's the earliest reference we have to the infancy gospel. So according to the church fathers, this is the Matthew who wrote this. And the virgins who were with Miriam, this is Miriam, the mother of Yeshua. This is the nativity story, of course. She had ladies in waiting with her. She was a super royal. She was like a princess, Miriam, super royal, ladies in waiting. And who were with Miriam said to him, Joseph, what are you saying? We know that no man has touched her. We can testify that she is still a virgin and untouched. We have watched over her. Always has she continued with us in prayer. Daily do the angels of Allahayam speak with her. Daily does she receive food from the hand of Yahuwah. We know not how it is possible that there can be any sin in her. But if you wish us to tell you what we suspect, nobody but the angel of Yahuwah has made her pregnant. Then Joseph said, after a pregnant pause, why do you mislead me to believe that an angel of Yahuwah has made her pregnant? But it is possible that someone has pretended to be an angel of Yahuwah and has beguiled her. So right there we see a clear reference to the seduction of Eve, that an angel can come and beguile and have intercourse. Now this next one is going to be another witness, and I actually like this one better. This is the infancy gospel of Yaakov. It has another great science fiction effect to it. Very popular in the 1st century amongst many Christians, maybe the 2nd century, but this was immensely popular back in the day. In the 6th month of her pregnancy, this is Miriam again, Joseph came from his house building and went into the house to find her swelling. And he struck his face and threw himself on the ground in sackcloth and wept bitterly. How can I look to Yahuwah Allahayam? Kind of like Adam and Eve, right? Like they had to run, right? How could they look at him? Or the watchers, right? The watchers could no longer look up to heaven. What will I pray about her? For I took her as a virgin from the temple of Yahuwah and did not guard her. Who has set this trap for me? Who did this evil in my house? Who stole the virgin from me and defiled her? And here's what I want you to see right here. Has not the story of Adam been repeated with me? Say what? For while Adam was glorifying Allahayam, the serpent came and found Chahwah, or Eve, alone and deceived her and defiled her. So it has also happened to me. Wait a second. Joseph, are you saying that Satan came and gave her a piece of fruit and she ate it and now she's offering that fruit to you? No, he's not saying that. Clearly in this text, an early Christian text, they are of the opinion that the sin of Adam and Eve was adultery, not just spiritual, but physical adultery with the serpent. Can't really argue that here. You don't have to believe it. You could say, I don't like this, and I don't want to believe what a huge amount of early Jews and Christians could agree with. At least one thing they could agree upon was that Adam and Eve had sex with Satan. Apparently, modern Christianity does not agree with that. The Jews still do. But you can't argue against this text, at least. And Joseph got up from his sackcloth and called her and said to her, after having been cared for by Allahayam, what have you done? Did you forget Yahuwah your Allahayam? You who were raised in the Holy of Holies, you who received from hand of an angel, do you know how much you have humiliated yourself? In which she, bitterly weeping, replies, I am pure and I did not know a man. Here's what the Gospel of Philip 42 said. I might have quoted from this last week, but I'm quote from it again. And he says, first, adultery came into being, right? The first sin, that agrees with the Aramaic Targum. So this is now, you could say this is a Gnostic tradition if you want. So we've got Christian, we've got Jewish, and Gnostic if you'd like. First, adultery came into being, afterwards, murder. And he was begotten in adultery. Who was begotten in adultery? The murderer, which is Cain, for he was the child of the serpent. So he became a murderer just like his father, as Joshua said that he was a murderer from the beginning. And he killed his brother. Indeed, every act of sexual intercourse which has occurred between those unlike one another is adultery. Obviously, it's stating there that Eve committed adultery. The Gospel of Philip 83 then says this: Adam came into being from two virgins, from the Ruach and from the virgin earth. Which is true. We have two mothers. I've had people argue with me in saying that I've had people take the position that Earth is our mother, right? Mother Earth. There's a lot of extra biblical texts out there to talk about that, including the Aramaic Targum. And they'll say, well, you can't have two mothers, Noel. Oh, well, actually, you can. You can have two mothers. Israel had four mommies. And by the way, the Earth, Mother Earth, is not the mother of Israel. There's only one mother of Israel, and that is the Ruach HaKodesh. Messiah, therefore, was born from a virgin. Why was he born from a virgin? To rectify the fall which occurred in the beginning. That's interesting. So again, right there, you see Miriam, his mother, playing the part of a second Eve character. Also, Miriam of Migdal also plays a second Eve character, but in a slightly different way. Now, I've stated in the past that questions of Bar Talmai right here, which might be the original gospel of Bartholomew. I am of the very strong opinion that the Miriam being described here is Miriam of Migdal. If this is Miriam the mother, as the current questions of Bar Talmai insist, then she's completely out of character, and she is cosplaying Mary Magdalene. I'm not going to get all into that tonight. But anyways, the disciples all get around Mary, who I believe is Mary Magdalene. The problem with questions of Bar Talmai is we know that the Gospel of Bartholomew was scrubbed. It was considered heretical. And all of a sudden, this questions of Bar Talmai surfaces. And the scholars, they don't even like translating this book much, because they say that you could see a lot of tampering has been done here. And it seems as though they've, again, she fits the idea of Mary Magdalene, whatever. All the disciples are getting around her, and this is what she says. But in me was he contained, that I might recover the strength of the female. And she goes on to say, actually Kepha here goes on to say, you are she that has brought to naught the transgression of Eve, of Chahwaha, changing it from shame into joy. Speaking here specifically of the birth of Mashiach. Let's see here. All right. Oh, and I read this a few weeks ago when going through the nativity story in Matthew, the infancy gospel of Yaakov. It says here, so that the midwife, she goes in to help deliver Mary, and they stood near the cave, and a dark cloud was hovering over the cave. And the midwife said, my soul glorifies this day, for today my eyes have seen a miracle. Salvation has come to Yasharel. And immediately in this cave in Bethlehem, the cloud withdrew from the cave, and a great light appeared in the cave. This is almost like when Enoch is born or when Noah is born, so that their eyes could not bear it. And a little while later, the same light withdrew until an infant appeared, and he came and took the breast of his mother Miriam. Now, I've gone through the whole case about how it's not just a virgin conception, it's also a virgin birth. So for the Christians out there saying that it was a virgin birth, it's kind of like it's a verbiage, right? You can't really say that if you believe that Messiah came down the chute, because then she would no longer be provably a virgin at that point. But in the infancy gospel of Yaakov, she is still a virgin after the birth, because the midwife goes down there and checks, and lo and behold, she's a virgin, meaning that the Yahshua just appeared as a kind of a miraculous spirit baby. And I have put forward the idea, because here she is, a second Eve, that Eve was intended to have children. I don't believe that the Mormon idea that they had to sin in order to have children. She was intended to have children, but I think it would have looked like this. I think it would have been a a kind of a miraculous, like they were spirit bodies as well, and it would have been some sort of spirit baby, kind of like, kind of digesting in the womb. Uh, and did I say digesting? Is that what I just said? I need more coffee. That when the baby was full term, that it would just kind of be born in a miraculous way like this, right? Second Eve, there it is. All right. Now we have a problem, Houston. We have a problem with serpent seed, with Nephilim and Cain's end. I already gave away the answer earlier tonight. So here we have in Second Baruch. Let's see, what time is it? How am I doing on time? I'm doing good on time. I have enough time. Let's look at this. Let's see what Second Baruch has to say. I'm going to start building this case about Cain. And he answered and said to me, "Why therefore are you troubled about that which you know not? And why are you ill at ease about things in which you are ignorant? For as you have not forgotten the people who are now and those who have passed away, so remember those who are appointed to come. Because when Adam sinned and death was decreed against those who should be born, then the multitude of those who should be born was numbered, and for that number a place was prepared where the living might dwell, and the dead might be guarded. Before, therefore, the number aforesaid is fulfilled, the creature will not live again, for my Ruach is the creator of life, and Sheol will receive the dead." Okay. Jumping over here to Enoch chapter 7. So we see here, and one of the themes at this point in Second Baruch is this. Actually, this lines up with Second Esdras too. That there were certain amount of people that were designated to be on this earth, and then a number would expire, and that they would go into Sheol. All right, but I'm going to build this case here with Enoch. This is what it says in Enoch 7. Then they, the watchers, took women, each choosing for himself, whom they began to approach. So we see more sexuality behind this sin, just like we saw with Satan, and with whom they cohabited, teaching them sorcery, incantations, and the dividing of roots and trees. And the women conceiving brought forth Nephilim, and they bore to them three races first. The great Nephilim, Nephilim brought forth the Nephilim, and the Nephilim brought forth the Iliad or Iliud. They are like rarely commented upon. I don't know what people don't really know what to do with them. And they existed, increasing in power according to their greatness, whose stature was each 300 cubits. These devoured all the labor of men until it became impossible to feed them, yada, yada, yada. Moving over to chapter 15. Now, the Nephilim who have been born of the Ruach and of flesh shall be called upon earth evil Ruachoth, or evil spirits. And on earth shall be their habitations. You guys know this, right? These are the demons. Evil spirits shall proceed from their flesh because they were created from above. From the holy watchers was the beginning and primary foundation. Evil spirits shall they be upon the earth, and the spirit of the wicked shall they be called. The habitation of the spirit, the Ruachoth of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial Ruachoth who are born on earth. Now, right here, we have some problems. Not that we have any problems, but if we take Messiah's language, or other places in Scripture where they say, like even Paul, he says you're either the image of heaven or of earth, right? You're either fleshly and earthly, and therefore your father is Satan, or you're heavenly and your father is Yahuwah. Well, here we see the same language use, and it's being purely physical. This is not just a spiritual metaphor. It's saying that this is actually the exciting part. This actually ties in with pre-existence, guys. If this is true, if this passage is true, and I believe it to be true, every single one of us do not come from the earth. We come from heaven. We literally come from heaven. We pre-existed in heaven. Let me read this again. The habitation of the spirits of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial spirits who are born on earth. So the Nephilim came from the earth. They did not originate. Yahuwah was not their father in heaven. They were born of the earth. Therefore, they needed a place to go. It says, and so then it goes on to describe these demons. The spirits of the Nephilim are like clouds, which shall oppress, corrupt, fall, content, and bruise upon earth. They shall cause lamentation. No food shall they eat, and they shall be thirsty. They shall be concealed, and shall rise up against the sons of men and against women, for they come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction. We later see in and so basically the reason I read to you from Second Baruch first, just to tie this back in, is that Sheol, there was a place where that was provided for the dead, right? There's a certain amount of souls are coming down to the earth from heaven, from our Father in heaven. They're designated, come down. He created so many, they all have to come down. When they die, they go to Sheol. The problem is that the demons, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, they do not come from the Father. They do not originate from him, from his throne. They came from the earth. Therefore, they don't go to Sheol. They don't have a place to go. He never designated a place for them. This is why they wander the earth. Okay. Hopefully everyone understands that. Capiche? Got it? One more interesting note here. I probably read from this passage too much. This comes from Enoch 22. Enoch goes down to Sheol. He sees Abel down there, and he asks about the spirit. And the angel says, "This is the Ruach, or the spirit of Havel, who was slain by Cain his brother, and who will accuse that brother until his seed be destroyed from the face of the earth, until his seed perish from the seed of mankind." So the question is, if Havel is, and we see a same scene playing in Revelation, as you guys know, that the spirits under the throne that are crying out. Havel's doing the same thing in Sheol. He's not at rest. He's crying out against his murderer. And at what point in history is Cain's seed destroyed from off the face of the earth? Well, it wasn't the flood, because Ham continued on. Is the seed of Cain still on this earth? This is how I'm going to end tonight. We're going to be talking about this. I'm going to give my perspective. It might be a perspective you've never heard about before. All right. And this says this right here in the writings of Abraham 18. Moreover, Nimrod was instructed in all the secrets of the evil combination by his father Cain, for Cain had not perished in the flood. This is the one passage right here. I've had more people who read the writings of Abraham, and they come to me and say, "Noel, this is not biblical. This is not scripturally correct because of this one passage." Cain did die. We have two accounts of him dying in Jasher and Jubilees way before the flood, or a good at least so many generations before the flood, so many years. That's not what this is saying here. Cain was a Nephilim. That's the problem. People don't think of Cain as Nephilim. He is the son of an angel, of a, you could call him a watcher. Maybe Satan, that wasn't his job description as a watcher, but he's a Nephilim. Therefore, he is an evil spirit that wanders the earth. Just like Og, guys. Og, even though Og was physically destroyed, I would imagine he would be a demon afterwards, right? He would still be possessing kings. He would still be calling shots. Nimrod probably too, right? Nimrod continued on. This is something that we discovered, or Hamla, she gets the credit for this. I just read it out loud. I was the first to read it publicly. This is in the prophecy of Balaam, the star and the scepter prophecy, Balaam in Numbers in the Paleo. So Pamela translated this from the Paleo, and this is what it says right here. And he shall observe Athha Kuyanuya. That right there means the descendants of Cain. And he shall observe the descendants of Cain, meaning this is post-flood. They still exist. And he shall lift up and he shall declare firm, constant is the flow of your habitation. And you have established your nest upon a rock. But conditionally, should Cain exist, to be burned with fire. And that's not a question mark like, does Cain exist? It's no, Cain should exist. He does exist, to be burned with fire. So it's saying that the spirit of Cain was still alive at the time of Balaam when he made his prophecy, when he when he put temptation out there. He couldn't, curse Israel. He could only bless them, but he put temptation out there for him. And Cain still existed to be burned with fire. And that's just, a reference to when Satan and his angels and everyone else is thrown in the lake of fire. Interesting. So I asked the question, has the seed of the serpent been destroyed? Now, I think we're all adults in this room. Not sure if there might be some children here, but let's just say we're all adults in this room, and probably most of us are at least investigating or at least well aware of the idea that the millennial kingdom happened in some form in the past. We are post millennial kingdom, meaning it physically or spiritually happened, or both. And so here is one of the first pieces of evidence in my investigation that I put forward was from the Ode of Solomon. I love this passage. The Odes of Solomon is an amazing book because there are several writers identified in there. And one of them is Yahshua himself. He is identified as a speaking part in there. And the writer identifies as actually coming up out of Sheol. He was resurrected in Sheol. He saw Yahshua come down and he was resurrected. So a lot of people say, well, Solomon couldn't have written this. Well, how do you know that? That's the trippy part. What if this was actually written by a resurrected Solomon? It's not that far of a stretch of the imagination. Again, the writer is identifying to be resurrected from the dead. He came out of Sheol. He saw Yahshua go down there and resurrect everybody. Why couldn't it have been Solomon? It would have been named after the guy who wrote the book as a resurrected saint. And the book is written in very simple language. It's written to the layman. It's written to the mortals on the earth to accept Yah's grace. In this passage here, it says, let me just read from verse 1. He who caused me to descend from on high and to ascend from the regions below, and he who gathers what is in the middle and throws them to me. That's a reference, I think, to Middle Earth right there. You see, a lot of the medievalists, they refer to our realm as Middle Earth, which is so awesome. He who scattered my enemies and my adversaries, he who gave me authority over bonds that I might unbind them. And this is what I want you to see right here. He who overthrew by my hands the dragon with 7 heads. Okay, this is the dragon from Revelation. The dragon. This is the Leviathan. All right, with 7 heads. You chop off one of the heads, and 2 more comes up, making 8 heads. And set me at his roots that I might destroy his seed. This seems to tie in with the prophecy in Baruch, which I'm not going to give tonight, about the destruction of the forest, ripping up all the trees, meaning like the seed of Satan being taken out. You could make a case here that this is stating that the seed of the dragon, of the serpent, was annihilated at the beginning of the millennial kingdom. We see this in the war scroll. In 3 lots, the son of light shall stand firm so as to strike a blow at wickedness. And in 3, the army of Belial shall strengthen themselves so as to force the retreat of the forces of light. I gave a whole presentation on this. I did a lot of research on the war scroll. I think it's legitimate. I think it is describing the invasion of the barbarians, that the propaganda department calls us the barbarians, in the, I guess you would call it the 6th century, in the 500s, really the late 400s into the 500s, as they destroyed, took out all the Gentiles all over the earth, Anglo-Saxons, so on and so forth. It says here that there would be 3 major victories from Satan and his army, 3 major victories from the sons of light, and the last victory would be decided by Yah himself. And it says, in the 7th lot, the great hand of Elohim shall overcome Belial and all the angels of his dominion, and all the men of his forces shall be destroyed forever. All right. So if this did happen at the beginning of the millennial kingdom, according to this, all the men working for Belial, all of them, I would assume his seed, were destroyed, gone, forever, wiped out. Now, this can be backed up with other passages, like in Tobit, right here in Tobit 14. I'll read you the last paragraph. At that time, Elohim will save all the people of Yasharel who have been faithful to him. He will bring them together to Jerusalem and let them take possession of the land of Abraham. And in all these instances, by the way, I think this is referring to the true land of promise. Not America, not Europe, not the Middle East, the true land. And there they will live securely forever. They will never be uprooted from it again. And I think it's a place here in terrestrial earth, or I should say terrestrial paradise. All who love Elohim with their heart and soul will rejoice, but all sinners and evil people will be wiped off the face of the earth. And this is referring to the initiation of the kingdom. This next passage comes from the Sibylline oracles describing the same event. Ye all will practice honored piety, but if ill disposed, ye obey me not. But with a fondness for strange lack of sense, receive all these things with an evil ear. There shall be over all the world a fire. This is probably the 536 AD event. And greatest omen with sword and with trump at sunrise, the whole world shall hear the roar and mighty sound, and he shall burn all earth and destroy the whole race of men. Seems like, I don't know if they're speaking generically there, or metaphorically. That seems like the whole race of men and all the cities and the rivers and the sea. It's interesting how I've spoken with some genealogists who have said that it appears that all genealogies can really only truly be traced about 1,500 years ago. There seems to be something that happened 1,500 years ago where the earth was wiped out. Just the population was diminished, and there was just a handful of people that came out through the other end. And, the handful would be the righteous, right? And things he'll burn, and it shall be black dust. But when now all things shall have been reduced to dust and ashes, and Allahayam shall have calmed the fire unspeakable, which he lit up, the bones and ashes of men, Allahayam himself again will fashion, and he will again raise mortals up even as they were before. So this is a big reset event right here. And I think this is 536 AD. All right. Let's get this one. Here's what it says in Ezra, 2nd Ezra, chapter 7. As those years, my son, the Messiah, after those years, my son, the Messiah shall die, and all who draw human breath. Now, this really confuses people. I think this could be a translation issue. I don't think this is saying that Messiah is going, that he dies a second time. Some people take that way. They're like, sorry, it says he dies a second time. Maybe he does. I think that the way this is worded is like, after those years, this Messiah will come, and he did come after those years, and he died, and then all who draw human breath will also die. Maybe that's a stretch. I think that makes the most sense contextually with the rest of history and scripture. It is what it is. Then the world shall be turned back to primeval silence for 7 days, as it was at the first beginning, so that no one shall be left. So according to 2nd Ezra, everybody dies. They're all dead. No one is left. There's no serpent seed people slipping through the crack, hiding in the caves, the earth, and the rocks. They might have hid there, but they're dead anyways. They're all dead. After 7 days, the world that is not yet awake shall be roused, and that which is corruptible shall perish. Then says that the pit of torment shall appear, and the furnace of Gehenna shall be disclosed. This is the day of shame, I guess, for all the sinners, as the righteous, they see the righteous as they are being thrown in. Terrible time. And he says here, I will not grieve over the great number of those who perish, for it is they who are now like a mist and are similar to a flame and smoke. They are set on fire and burn hotly and are extinguished. Assumption of Moses says the same thing. For the Most High will arise, the eternal Allahayam alone, and he will appear to punish the Goyim, the Gentiles. You don't want to be a Gentile. And he will destroy all their idols, and they shall be ended. It says, and you will look from on high and see your enemies in Gehenna, and you shall recognize them and rejoice. Assumptions of Moses 10. First Enoch 45 says, I shall destroy them, the sinners, the evildoers, from the face of the earth. First Enoch 45. I think I made my point. I'm just going to be skipping ahead through some of these. And I did a lot of these in my video on the fire that, what is it? The fire that cannot be consumed or whatever. Yeah. Here's one more for the War Scroll. I'll close this before we start looking at the Millennial Kingdom and the Blue Bloods. We'll finish on this, the War Scroll. Excuse me. This is a direct comparison to Isaiah 37. You guys know the passage of the angel of the Lord of Yahweh that goes out there, strikes 185,000 dead overnight. And, that people will argue with that number, whatever. He either killed 185,000 or a lot of people. But this is what it says in the War Scroll. Then they shall gather in the camp that night for rest until the morning. This is the seventh battle. It's like a stalemate, and the righteous are like, we can't win against Belial. He's too powerful. We can't overcome him. So they go back to their camp that night, and in the night, it's a replay of Isaiah 37. In the morning, they shall come to the place of the battle line. I mean, they're all probably feeling pretty dejected. They're like, we're going to go die. We're not going to survive this. Where the mighty men of the Kittim fell, as well as the multitude of Assyria, and the forces of all the nations that were assembled unto them, to see whether the multitude of slain are dead with none to bury them, those who fell there by the sword of Allah, meaning that during the night, he went and slayed everybody. They're all dead. And this is, where we get the prophecies of the, prancing upon the ashes of Gehenna, so to speak. They're all dead. All right. So what I want to do now is, after showing you that, I want to show that in the Middle Ages, I show these maps a lot. I love these maps. I should just show these every week unapologetically. Like, I should just make it like the cover of every YouTube video. Just, slip this map. I might do that next week. I'm just going to slip this map into the background, and you'll have to look for it. You never know. But in all these maps, they weren't really concerned with, it wasn't until you get into the 1500s with the New World, Columbus and all that, where they put this big concentrated effort on mapping the world. We're not going into that conspiracy right now. They weren't really concerned about that. They made the earth a circle, because the earth is a circle. It is, and it's flat. And they always put Jerusalem in the middle. And they're kind of thinking more about inheritance, pilgrim routes, things like that. But you could see here, if you look over here to the left side, you could see these flames. And I actually think this is referring to the prophecy of the Holy Spirit, New Jerusalem coming down. But over here on the right, the far right, you could see what I would refer to as the outer darkness. And these are a bunch of naked, cannibalistic, kind of primitive people that live on the outskirts of the earth. Who are these people? I am becoming more, I thought it was a little silly at first, the first time I heard it, but I am becoming more and more convinced that the Great Wall of China is Alexander's wall, even though it's supposed to be over there by the Black Sea. They'd never found his wall. And, the Great Wall of China was being built right around that time of Alexander. And I think it's it. I think that's his wall. I think there was a purposeful confusion in the text or whatever to throw us off the scent. And they were keeping the creatures, the people on the other side of that wall. They didn't want them over. They were outside of the kingdom. Here's another one here. And again, on the right side over here, you can see these people on the outskirts of the earth, on the outer realm of the kingdom, naked and primitive, and they're eating flesh, just cannibals, disgusting creatures that they are. Now, just this week, let me flip back over here for all my, thank you, Patreon subscribers. Everyone who gives to this ministry and supports us and invests in this ministry, what we're doing, I'm starting now to premiere all of my new papers with you guys. You guys get the first dibs for like a month. I used to do this years ago, and just as a thank you to everyone. And one of the things I discussed in there was gargoyles and grotesques. I mean, the article is called Gargoyles and Grotesques. To quickly sum this up for you guys, I will be giving a presentation on this soon. A gargoyle is a grotesque, but a grotesque is not a gargoyle. Okay. A true gargoyle has to like gurgle water through the throat. Those stone statues that they got on Notre Dame that everyone thinks is a gargoyle. In fact, they're the most popular gargoyles on earth. What people think about when they think of gargoyles, those are not gargoyles. You could say they're statues or grotesques, but because they cannot funnel water, because they do not drain water, they are not true gargoyles. But we do have these grotesques. They're called grotesques all over the cathedrals, and I'm going around photographing them. These are my pictures. This is Salisbury Cathedral right here, and I'm really I'm fascinated by the idea that, number one, nobody, and I stress nobody, knows what purpose gargoyles served or grotesque. Well, we know that the gargoyles funneled water. I mean, that makes sense, but why were they these devilish bat creatures, right? And they're also hybrids or lions or things like that. I get people, just like, they just come down hard on this. This is proof that the millennial kingdom never happened. It's like, what do you mean it's proof? All that means is that you have these preconceived notions as to what should be on these cathedrals and what is not proper to be on these cathedrals. And you have been informed by scholars about what purpose they served. And those scholars no longer believe those things anymore. There's several theories on it. First of all, just so everybody knows, these grotesques, they weren't called grotesque by anyone in the Middle Ages. That was propaganda that was put forward by the people afterwards when they started calling it the Dark Ages, because they wanted to see how ugly these cathedrals were. They served a purpose and nobody knows. I'll be taking you through all those details and the different theories out there. The number one that I ascribe to is that they do seem to be reminders to everybody of the outer darkness and people on the outside of the realm. Most of these grotesques, they are in pain and mournful, and they look like they're in agony. So there's that right there. And here's the close-ups of the two maps right here, so you could quickly look at them and see there's a guy eating his own foot, that guy maybe his knee, and there's those creatures. I always forget their names with the faces on their chest. Kind of interesting creatures. There's a lot of illustrations of those in the Middle Ages. Sometimes, however, we do see them inside of churches. Very, very rarely. I took these pictures also in Salisbury. I'll be going over that. This is actually in Temple Church. And this is going to bring up my next point. So in Temple Church in London, this is the headquarters of the Knights Templar in London. They built these circle churches that were based on Solomon's temple on the Temple Mount. It was not the Dome of the Rock back then. It was Solomon's temple. And I say this a lot, but just for any newbies out there, there is no other Islamic building on earth that actually matches that. There's nothing that lines up with it. It was clearly not originally built by the Islamic people. It was all part of the narrative that they've tacked it on. The Knights Templar called it Solomon's Temple, and I think it was. I think it was a type of temple that was there at that time. So they based their circular church in London on that. It also represented, of course, the world itself, the realm. And so I personally think, now keep in mind, if you were one of the Templars in Temple Church, it was kind of a special place that they would go. You kind of have to have special admittance. The signers of the Magna Carta were there in that church. That's where they had the first debates for it. Many of the signers of the Declaration of Independence attended Temple Church. And my theory on this is, well, I mean, first of all, why would they put these grotesque in here to look at, mock them? I actually think that this actually was a reminder for them, maybe a humble reminder of how they were perceived by the rest of the world, that they were actually mocked. It actually ties in with my theory as to who the Templar were. And once again, they're on the outskirts. They're on the outer darkness of the kingdom, looking in, mocking the kingdom. Like they're not necessarily, they don't desire to be in the kingdom. If they truly desired to be in the kingdom, they would be in the kingdom, but they don't want to be in the kingdom. Now that brings up the next point. Serpent seed, I call this segment Serpent Seed Continued or something else. You see this lady here. She's actually an author, one of the Templar researchers. She is over the grave of a William Marshall. William Marshall is considered by many to be like the greatest knight who ever lived. He was a Templar. He plays in with the Da Vinci Code and all that kind of stuff. What's interesting here is that there is a lot of debate. I'm not going to get into this tonight. I will in future episodes. There is so much debate as to who these people actually are here. They don't know. Like they literally don't know half the time. Just around the corner from me, there's an abbey, a Gothic abbey. I walk down there today, walk down there almost every day, kind of sitting there, collect my thoughts. There is a Crusader knight that is buried in the church, elevated above ground, and they will tell you they don't have the faintest clue who he is and when he died. They know he was a Templar, a Crusader knight. They don't know anything else. Like, how do they not know this stuff? It's fascinating when you're actually digging into this, how much of our history that they make look so sure of itself that it's just almost like paper thin. It's not, it's almost like they make it look like a house of bricks and it's a house of cards. They really don't know. That being said, one of the things I started noticing when I was doing a lot of genealogies back in the Serpent Seed days. I've changed my opinion on this now. I'm just give it away for you guys, whoever's still with me. I am not convinced that the blue bloods today are Serpent Seed. I am leaning towards the opinion that they are descended from the resurrected sainthood. Okay. And I started noticing that with the Magna Carta sureties, if you don't want to call them signers, but signers, the more patriarchs you have in your family where you're directly related to them, the bigger of American royalty you are. I will show you some examples. Just, in my, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I cannot find a single Magna Carta signer in my through the monarchy, patriarchy, whatever of my family. Nobody traced back. I'm not related to any of them. And this is why probably if I had like 2 or 3 of them, I would probably be a somebody, if you get my drift. I'd be like on Phil Donahue, or, I'd be like brought into, I don't know, I'd be like sitting there on The View or something like that with Whoopi, debating my conservatism or whatever, but I'm not. And I will be relegated here to this corner of the internet because I have none of that blue blood relation. It has its advantages in some ways. So, all right. So let me just show you some of I'm going to start with this knight right here, William Marshall, signer of the Magna Carta. It was in Temple Church where they pressured King John, the villain from Robin Hood, to sign it. Long history. I'm not going to go into that there, but it is considered one of the greatest documents of all time. And he had 4 granddaughters. He had quite a few of them. Anne Boleyn was a 9th great-granddaughter. I just talked about her last night. If you tune into King Henry VIII, the end of the Millennial Kingdom. Catherine Parr, 9th great-granddaughter. Jane Seymour, 10th great-granddaughter. And Catherine Howard, 10th great-grandfather. Isn't that interesting? They all married King Henry VIII. In all the biographies of King Henry, they never once tell you, I've never read or ever heard, that he was selecting women that were direct granddaughters of this individual right up here, William Marshall. Clearly, that is not a coincidence. Maybe the biographers don't know, but at that time, they were selecting them on purpose. Now, the royalty continues with King Henry VIII of England being his 9th great-grandson, Queen Elizabeth I, Mary Stuart, Charles V, Princess Diana, Prince William, Duke Harry, Queen Elizabeth II, King Charles III, Catherine Middleton, Camellia Parker Bowles, Mary Chancel Miller, and Meghan Markle. They are all directly descended from him. You can see their, 10th, 11th, 20th, 21st great-grandson, great-granddaughter, whatever. We have the signers of the Declaration of Independence directly related from him. Let's see, how many do we have? If only I wrote them all down. But how many? But we have, I'll count them up right now on my fingers. Benjamin Harris, Philip Livington, Roger Sherman, Thomas Nelson, Caesar Rodney, John Langdon, Richard Henry Lee, I'm up to 7, Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton, Robert Treat Payne, that's 10, William Floyd, General William Whipple, what a fun name, General Whipple, Button Gwinnett, Charles Carroll, and Thomas Jefferson. I might have got too excited with William Whipple and didn't count him. So we either have 14 or 15 here. But then let's look at U.S. presidents that are directly related to this guy, father, through mothers, whatever. George Washington, John Quincy Adams, William Henry Harrison, Thomas Jefferson, Grover Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, Zachary Taylor, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, Herbert Hoover, William Howard Taft, Herbert Hoover, Calvin Coolidge, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. Wait, I thought he was black, but I guess white people don't get credit for how many white people he has in his family history. Nevertheless, there's probably more presidents, but that's what I was able to track down just for this paper that I wrote on in part of my Templar piece. That's a lot of presidents that are directly related to him. We have first ladies right here: Abigail Adams, Jane Pierce, Garfield, Eleanor Roosevelt, Edith Wilson, Lou Hoover, Ellen Louise Wilson, Alice Roosevelt, Barbara Bush. Now, of course, that could, if Barbara Bush is the child of Aleister Crowley, kind of messes up the genealogy, but it kind of doesn't because we've already gone over, the adoption. That adoption is still accredited as being legitimate, even if you are not blood. Mommy, is it Mammy or Mommy? I don't even know Eisenhower's wife's name. I've never heard that before. Mammy or Mommy? I guess I wasn't alive in the 50s. So, vice presidents, you see some there. I don't even go into the sheer number of actors that are related to this guy, but here are some of the poets and writers of fiction that are directly grandchildren of this guy. Jonathan Swift, Charles Darwin. See, I put him in as a writer of fiction too. You see what I did there? Herman Melville, Lewis Carroll, Noel Coward, Harriet Martineau, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., T.S. Eliot, E.M. Forster, William Henry Burleigh, Tennessee Williams, Emily Post, Jack London, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Ray Bradbury, Robert Frost, Robert Louis Stevenson, Louis L'Amour, and Aldous Huxley. Maybe you recognize some of those names in there. And that just, I could take you down. That took me a whole day, guys. That took me a whole day. Just that right there. I hope you enjoyed that. That was like, in the, like the $1 million shot in a movie, like the big explosions. It's only like a second of the movie, but it's like the whole budget's put into that. That was the budget of this week right there. So I hope you appreciated that. I didn't even have time to go through all of the inventors, just, the Annie Oakleys of America, all related to this guy. So yeah, now, but it gets more complicated than that because I traced this backwards. I started from him and I went down, but let's do the opposite. Let's look at Lucille Ball. All right. Lucille Ball, the American trickster, the Mercury of comedy. She's first of all, her ninth great grandmother is Rachel Vinson. And, if you don't recognize that name, in 1692, Vinson was accused of witchcraft in Salem. She's actually attracted. She's actually related to a few from that. I think it was a hoax. I think it was a psychodramatic hoax, a stage scripted event put out there by Intel. And it is very interesting how almost everyone involved in the Salem witch trials were super royal guys. They were all like blue-blooded. Anyways. Mary Town Esty and Rebecca Town Nurse were her seventh great grand aunts, and Mary Perkins Bradbury was another accused witch, her eighth great grand aunt. So she's related to all of them, but she's directly related to Rachel Vinson. Moving on from there, I found in Lucille Ball's family lineage 10 Magna Carta sureties or signers. 10. Okay. Again, I've got 0. She's got 10. This is why yeah, Lucille Ball's got like something above all of us. I wish tonight I included Walt Disney's genealogy in here because he's got like a lot of Magna Carta signers too. There's something about these dudes. You see like the Mayflower, so on and so forth, and you could trace into different royalty and presidents. But the more Magna Carta signers you have, the bigger you are. So, you got you can see there. I'm not going to list off the 22nd, 23rd, whatever, but you see all these great grandfathers. And here are their names. Robert de Ross, Hugh Le Bigod, William D. Albany, John D. Lacey, Gilbert D. Clare, William D. Mowbray, Richard D. Clare, Seher D. Quincy, Roger Le Bigod, Henry de Bohun. So you got those there. Those are the 10. All right. But then you got, of course, royalty, King Edward I, King Henry III, King Louis VI, William the Conqueror. That is really, really interesting. 27th great grandfather. I want to really look into William the Conqueror. Anyone who's been here to England and toured it, like you cannot go to a castle without there saying like, okay, William the Conqueror built this. King Robert I, Alfred the Great, and of course, Charlemagne, her 36th great grandfather. But then we get to Marilyn Monroe. Let's see what Marilyn Monroe is up to. She had 12, a dozen signers of the Magna Carta, or sureties, if you prefer. And you can go through the list here. William Mallet, William D. Albany, John D. Lacey, Gilbert de Clare, Robert de Ross. William D. Huntingfield, Hugh Le Bygod, Richard de Clare, Seher de Quincy, Henry de Bohun, Robert Fitzwalter, and Roger Bygod. And of course, then she's got, the same old suspects: William the Conqueror, King Robert I, Alfred the Great, Charlemagne, King Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth, all that, all in her relation. She's related to George H.W. Bush, as you can imagine, the Roosevelts, the Adams, so on and so forth. But then we've got this guy right here, Admiral Byrd, in the flesh, the person, the explorer, the high jump guy. He had also 12 Magna Carta sureties. So you can imagine, and by the way, he was also related directly to Pocahontas. That's where he and I kind of get our stories close together, because I have mentioned on here that I am directly related to not John Smith, Captain Christopher Newport, who had John Smith on his boat, and the whole Pocahontas story. But he's actually directly related from Pocahontas. He had 12 Magna Carta sureties. I'm not going to read them all off. Same names. You can see them right here. But it makes sense that a guy like this would be chosen to do the North Pole and Antarctica secret expeditions, and everything he discovered there makes sense. Trust a guy like that. So I can't prove this, and we're going to end on this note tonight. I can't prove this, but I am of the opinion that whoever these Magna Carta sureties were, it ties in with the Knights Templar and my theories on who they were, that they actually weren't the bad guys. See, the problem is that we have all, you kind of have to unlearn what you've learned. We've all come through this Truther movement, learning about the Templars, the bankers and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is that it was a kangaroo court. It was wartime propaganda from the Catholic Church. They smeared this guy on these just ridiculous fake claims of worshiping and Baphomet and all this kind of stuff. In which case, to this day, we have their inheritors, their descendants are the Freemasons, and they've kind of come in and they've taken over everything. And so we just naturally attribute the Freemasons today and the Illuminati and so on and so forth with the Knights Templar. I think it's all inverted. I think there's something else going on. And I suspect that these were some really interesting dudes that is not being told to us. And I think that's who this blue blood is. I think that if the Millennial Kingdom is behind us, it already happened. Something we don't really talk about as much is, like, I have people coming to me all the time because they know that I'm a big Mary Magdalene researcher. And they're like, no, do you think, because they're trying to get me, they're trying to get me, they want to discredit the whole thing. And they're like, no, do you really think that Mary Magdalene had a child and that lineage continued? I'm like, it's kind of like a moot point, because the bigger issue, because I don't know, I'm not trying to avoid the question. Like, I don't know. I wasn't there, nor was I there if the Millennial Kingdom happened. But the bigger context here, the elephant in the room, is that if the Millennial Kingdom happened and the entire world went extinct and just the righteous are coming at the other end, and then it looks like he reanimated people again, the mortals came back. Most of us have some sort of blood in us. We are descended from a resurrected saint of the Millennial Kingdom. Like, think about that and let that sink in. Is it possible that the more royal you are, the bigger you become? And people are like, but no, hold on here. These are some wicked people. Yeah, there's a lot of wicked royal blue bloods in the world. But then let's take it back to the Bible if you want. We could take it back to 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st, 2nd Chronicles. Show me a single king in Israel that was righteous. There were none. There was not one single king in Israel that was righteous. They were wicked. Now, there were a few in the line of Judah who were righteous, and a few that did okay. There was a lot that were wicked in that line. So yes, you can be descended from Israel and you could be wicked. So anyways, that's, I think, all we have time for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that tonight, and let me know what your conclusions are. Am I off my rocker on this? I mean, assuming, I could be off my rocker on a lot of things, right? I mean, maybe you don't believe in serpent seed, maybe you don't believe in the Millennial Kingdom, but assuming for the second that you do accept the serpent seed theory and you accept the Millennial Kingdom theory, am I off my rocker? And the idea that we are, I say we kind of generically, that we are descended from the resurrected sainthood. I don't know that I am. I mean, I've traced my family back. I told you, like Captain Newport, in his own bio, he's considered a commoner. He would have been like a peasant that just kind of got like his break in life. There are commoners that some of us are descended from. We have like no royal blood. We could have been just from the mortals that were reanimated afterwards. But some of us, I've had people telling me, "Oh, I looked in my husband is related to like Charlemagne or whatever." Cool, awesome. Maybe he's descended from one of the first, right? Anyways, love you guys. Whenever your Sabbath is, I hope you have a restful Sabbath, and don't forget tonight to come by at I'm off my time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Right. So figure out where you are on this motionless plane, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Discord community. Please come by. I enjoy your guys' company. Yesterday was Juneteenth day, and I went walking around hoping somebody here would in England would say happy Juneteenth day to me. Nobody did. I was so disappointed. Which is to say, I have no friends back here. I'm here with my family, but I love getting together with you guys on Friday night, 7 p.m., talking to you guys, hearing how your life is going. Come by, say hi, ask questions, get in a discussion. And don't forget, I need you guys' support. If you guys enjoyed this tonight, if this was helpful to you, if any of the videos have, if they have helped you in your faith journey, your wisdom journey, your knowledge journey, just your life journey. And I hope to be here 10, 20, 30 years. I want to do this for the rest of my life. I need you guys' help. I need your support. Please show your love. Good night, everybody.